what the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us. We're having so many technical difficulties on my side of things this day for some reason, but we finally seems like we've got it sorted out. Thank you for joining us, even though we're starting a little bit late. Okay, so frequent viewers of my channel will know already Janis, Gillham, Grady, and Mark Fisher, although we will do a bit of an introduction since, of course, not everyone watching has watched our videos before. Joining us for the very first time this evening on a Monday Night Live is Reese Quibell. Her YouTube channel is Relatable Reese. Hello, hello, Reese. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm really excited. We both are.
Yeah, I see you got to get there.
Every time I have an animal somehow in it. But thank you for having me on.
What is the cat's name?
I'm embarrassed to share it because when we rescued her, she was abused and disappeared in our house for about 30 days. I couldn't find her. So I kept calling her Kid. And I was like, hey, Kid, where are you, Kid? Kid, come out. So she just started coming around to that name. So her name's Kid. No one likes that.
Very cool. Okay, so Janis and Mark co-host a YouTube channel called Our Scientology Stories, Peeling the Onion. I have sampled a lot of their videos for videos on my channel, so that's why a lot of my viewers should be familiar with them. Reese just started her YouTube channel literally today. And I think Reese is probably going to be one of the more prolific SPTV creators, hopefully. So Reese, since people are less likely to be familiar with you at this point than with Janis and Mark, just tell everyone real quick kind of your history in Scientology.
So I was born and raised. I just turned 39. So in it since I was born, I was in the cadet org at a young age, and then I was on staff starting at the age of 13. And there's a whole video on that about my time on staff. But after I finished staff, I hope that's not distracting to anyone, the cat there. After I completed staff, I was a public for a long time and just did auditing and services courses. And up till I was about 35 was my last session.
Okay, very cool. And you're in the Kansas City area, right?
I'm in the Kansas City area, and I've done 2 videos with you, and I really didn't have any intentions of making a channel until our video last week. And I woke up the next morning from that, and Jeff was like, okay, Amazon just dropped off your mic and I got all your stuff for your channel. And I was like, what? And he was like, Aaron thinks you should do this. You should do it. And I said, okay. I guess I'm kind of being pushed into it.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. Something.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I do want to say real quick, since that last video, I've been super pumped actually to do this because so many people have reached out, and I just have enjoyed so much talking with people. It's just, this is so natural for me. It feels good, and I love talking to people. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope I make a lot of friends.
Awesome. Janis, would you mind telling everyone your Scientology history?
Well, I was born into Scientology, and I grew up in a Scientology mission. And when Scientology got banned in Victoria, Australia, we ended up at St. Hill in England. And then at 11 years old, I went to the Royal Scotland to join my mother, who was not there, and lived on the Royal Scotland, later the Apollo, for 8 years. Became a Commodore's messenger at age 12. And then I finally left the Sea Org at 34 years old, barefoot and pregnant.
And so when you left the Sea Org, everything you'd ever known had been the Sea Org. I don't necessarily want to prompt you to tell your entire, story, but where did you go?
My brother had left 8 years before me, and I hadn't seen him in 8 years. And so when I left, I went to my dad and I asked him for my brother's phone number and address. He gave it to me because he'd secretly been seeing him, which I didn't know. And then I showed up at my brother's doorstep and he wasn't there. He was camping down at Point Magoo. And so Paul and I went down to Point Magoo and ended up camping with him and his family our first night out.
Wow. All right. So Mark, tell everyone your history in Scientology.
Okay, I got in Scientology through my dad when I was 14, 15 years old. He was retired Navy. He read the Dianetics book. And this is in 1972, 73. And he got involved. He started getting auditing and training. And after about a year, he thought that it would really help me. So he got me into it. And I did a bunch of my auditing all the way up through grade 4 when I was in Washington, D.C. And then when I graduated from high school, I joined the Sea Organization, and I was down in Clearwater, Florida. And I was down there for several years, and then eventually went up to the secret international base at Gillham Hot Springs. And I worked in the Religious Technology Center for quite some time. And then eventually I became David Miscavige's, the head of his office up there at the Gold Base, the Gillham Hot Springs location. And so for the last 6 years, I was in the Sea Org. I handled his personal and his administrative needs, as well as oversaw the different things that were going on at Gold. And then I also left in September 1990, around the same time as Janis. And as a matter of fact, the second time I blew, it was the same day that Paul and Janis blew. And then when I left, when they recovered me the next day, they told me that Paul and Janis had blew. And then I went, oh, great. Then I'm not crazy. I'm going to be leaving again as soon as next chance I get. And I took off, and then we hooked up about 2 months after I left, and the rest is history.
So they recovered you and told you that Janis and her husband had escaped?
Yeah. Mike Sutter. Yeah, the second time I blew, I didn't know I was going crazy, and I didn't know this was after the flood. We had the big flood, which we've talked about before. But anyway, yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do. I went to my sister's house in Hollywood. She was a public Scientologist, her and her husband. I went to sleep. By the time I woke up, Mike Sutter and the security guards were there and to take me in, and then they drove me back to the base, and security guards drove my car, and I was in the car with Mike Sutter, and he said, oh, Janis and Paul Grady left last night too. You know what I mean? And I thought, boy, that was a big mistake, because when you're thinking about leaving, you think you're crazy. You think you're the only one. And that just reinforced for me that I was not.
That's amazing. That's amazing. By the way, I see people in the chat are saying they're having a hard time finding Reese's channel on YouTube. If you just search separately the words relatable Reese, you're going to have trouble finding it. But if you go into the search bar and you type the @ symbol and relatable Reese as one word, it will be the top results.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay. Jeff couldn't find me earlier, so I just figured because it's so new.
Oh, yeah, no, if you type in your handle, the @ relatable Reese, it will show up as the top result.
Okay.
So Reese, you mentioned that when you mentioned before we started the stream here that Janis's either the Aftermath show or Janis's episode on the Aftermath show was one of the first things you watched when you were kind of on your way out of Scientology. How did that work?
Well, I was telling her just a little bit ago that I loved her on the show, and the show was kind of the first thing that, let's just put it this way. The show had been out for years, and my mother and my sister, every summer I'd come visit, they'd go, let us just put one episode on. Let us just show you what, because I was still involved in the church. And I got to the point where I would say, I'm going to fly home early if you guys don't stop. I'm going to get in trouble. I can't watch it, right? Like, I can't watch it. And then years went by, and a friend said, you really should maybe just watch one. And so I did, and I just couldn't stop crying. I thought basically what Mark just said. I was like, I thought I was the only one. I can't believe those things happen to other people. I just couldn't believe it. Every time someone tried to convince me to watch that show, I would say the typical Scientology, like John Travolta, why would I want to watch that? But it was more, I would think in my mind, I was like, why do I want to watch a bunch of people who are going to say I'm a victim when they're not, and they're making things up? Because that's what I was told. It's all made up. And my God, it was not at all. It was just so sad to watch those stories one after the next. It was just, I couldn't stop crying. And so when I watched her episode, also your episode was special to me because there's so much history. I was born in 1984. So like hearing like the stuff before that was really interesting. You know, you had some pictures. Wasn't there a picture of you with LRH?
Yes.
I think, yeah. And that
Yeah.
was really just kind of neat. Some of those episodes where it talked about his history, like Ron's history, and just, of course, the things that weren't true. I don't know. It's always interesting to go, wow. I mean, I've been in it for 30 plus years and I didn't know that stuff. So I don't know. It just was kind of neat to find out what happened before me. And with Shelly,
that's
of
kind of
course.
well, that's kind of what our channel's about. We do a lot of historical stuff, right, Janis?
Yeah, we do. We've got photographs of old Saint Hill and the different ships and different people, old timers that you hear the names, but you never know what's the face that goes with that name. And
Right.
we've got interviews with 80-year-old men who were there.
Which they do that, right? Like they try to find those people. When I would go to events at our org, they had a couple of old timers that were like, I worked with LRH and I liked them. They were neat guys, but I feel like they really try to find those people. Don't you think, Aaron, where it's like, tell the good,
You mean like Scientology tries to find them?
Yes. Yes.
Well,
just like the
well,
people who used to work with him.
Well, Scientology knows who the former Sea Org members are who worked with him, and they pretty much want to ostracize those people because they know that those people will have some sort of sway or be opinion leaders for other Scientologists. But I think what you're talking about is like at some of the Scientology events, they will go and find non-Scientologists who used to work with L. Ron Hubbard, whether they served on his ship with him or hung out with him in Hollywood or helped him steal Jack Parsons' girlfriend or whatever it was. And they'll bring these people in to tell these like amazing, incredible stories about L. Ron Hubbard. I remember them bringing those guys in at a bunch of events, but I'll tell you what, I don't remember them bringing in a single Scientologist or former Scientologist to talk about L. Ron Hubbard.
Or a former Commodore's messenger.
Right.
Right. Because those stories would be a little different.
Wow.
Actually, Janis, I'm curious to know, I am someone who, it's embarrassing to say this looking back on it, but it just happens to be true. Never even for 1 second suspected that anything we were told in any of those events was false or even slightly exaggerated. It just never even occurred to me that that was an option. And yet I know that's not true for everyone. I know there are people who would watch those events and be like, well, that's not true. And I know some people who would watch events, they go, well, that's not true. And they would write it up. They would actually write a report to chairman of the board that he needs to know that there's false reports being submitted in the events as if he was, well, not good for them. No,
fact checking.
Writing those reports sealed their fate. Little did they know Miscavige is the one who ordered that falsehood be in there. But my question to you is, you had all that experience working directly with L. Ron Hubbard, seeing the state of things yourself. Did you ever run into a situation where you would see one of these events and you're like, you just knew that shit was not accurate, or was it just not a thing for you?
You know what? Up until DM, there were no events. We had a Christmas party. We had May 9 party where everyone just went down and we danced and hung out. It was a big social event. Those events never happened until DM got in charge.
Yeah, that happened right after March 13th, 1986, when the Road to Freedom album was released. We did a video on it on our channel, and Miscavige came out, and he was the master of ceremonies. He didn't want to speak to the public at all, and he realized that, oh my God, the people admire me, and they're looking at me, and all that. And so it built up his ego to the point where he's like going, oh, we're going to do events, for March 13th, May 9th, Auditor's Day, and all that. And after we left, he basically ran Scientology by events. We have a new release. We got to have the release out,
Yep. But the thing is, according to L. Ron Hubbard, events are off policy. There weren't supposed to be events, and there wasn't supposed to be fundraising.
Right.
LRH was deliver. Income will follow delivery.
The only events
saying.
Janis, the only events I remember as a public in the 70s were the flag events. The Flag World Tour. Do you remember that? The Flag Service Org would send out they'd go on tour from city to city. You're getting people, regging them to come to Flag for services, and they might fly in like Quentin Hubbard. He flew into the DC one when I was a teenager, and they'd fly in a celebrity, quote unquote, Scientology celebrity. But other than that, there were never any events before that.
No, they were pretty much put on by the local orgs. Or my parents used to do events because my dad used to lecture, and my mom used to go and do group processing, at different orgs or missions, or she'd even go with different performers. And she was standing there in front of all these people at a rock concert doing group processing on them.
But Janis, but in what you're talking about, would you describe that more as like almost a dissemination recruitment,
Yes.
bring new people into Scientology event, not a let's celebrate the anniversary of Dianetics for, like those were events meant to bring people into Scientology.
Right. But there were May 9 events in the orgs, but that was put on by the org to bring
Like
in
as
their
a party.
locals and, have their own little party. It was never this big international event with David Miscavige on the stage, and at one point he had other people, and then they all kind of disappeared because they weren't good enough.
Janis, do you remember that you and I went on we did an event in Mexico City, Janis and I, because right after L. Ron Hubbard died, Miscavige had the idea, let's do international management events in every continent all over the world in order to show people who's running Scientology, who's in charge. And I remember Janis and I went as an RTC representative, and Janis went as a Commodore's Messenger organization. And we went to Mexico City, and we spoke. There was 2,000-3,000 people there, right, Janis? Yeah. David Agami, we stayed at his house, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Holy cow. Somehow it had not dawned on me that before Miscavige, there was not international events.
Yeah, I'm blown away right now by this. I almost can't believe this. There were no real events.
No, the first one was after L. Ron Hubbard died. We had to March 13th. We released the Road to Freedom album, and we worked around the clock for 30 days to get that album produced. We got it produced, and we had it at the Universal Amphitheater in Hollywood. And we had all these celebrities come and play, and and Miscavige was the master of ceremonies, just like he ended up being later on. And that was it. He had never spoken publicly except 2 months before at the LRH death event, where nobody had ever seen him before. Public had never seen him before. And he stood on the stage and announced that L. Ron Hubbard had dropped his body. Anyway, but that was it. He was always a behind the scene person. He was not out front. It was not what he wanted to do. But then he realized, like I said, oh my God, I get all this, recognition, and we're going to have to do this. And it just became the way of life.
What a weasel. I have lost so much time to events. Do you know how much guilt tripping they do to get you to go to events? I'm like, I can't. I have a wedding. They're like, weddings come and go. This is your eternity. I was like, okay, I'll un-RSVP, I guess.
Do you realize,
cross my name.
Reese, you're just starting on YouTube, but when your YouTube channel gets up, you're going to be actually reaching, like probably right now on this live stream, you're reaching more people than Miscavige does at any one of those international events. Am I right, Aaron?
Well, I mean, you can fit a couple thousand people into the Ruth Eckert Hall. I'm sure you got a couple thousand more people at PAC, but I'll tell you, you'll reach more people per week than Miscavige reaches, at any of those events.
Right.
Also, the events are incredibly expensive. I can tell you that when I was, in the Sea Org in Los Angeles, and it was only our share. Like, just even if we were going to do an event that wasn't at the Shrine Auditorium, it was just on L. Ron Hubbard Way. Renting the tent, putting on an event, just even in a rented tent, cost not less than $200,000.
Wow.
Just to what? Wow. Have a video of Miscavige giving everyone an update with a bunch of BS. He'd be better off not doing those.
Yeah.
Right. But then see, they became regging events, didn't they? For donations for the International Association of Scientologists or the latest building. I mean, isn't that what he did? I mean, they'd lock the doors and try and, empty everybody's pockets from what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, locking the doors was for like fundraising for the IAS events. But the thing was, every event had to have something that was being released and sold, whether it was a new volume, a new lecture set, a new course. An event just basically, it became like, your annual Apple event. Like, this event is to announce the new thing you're expected to buy. You know, the new management series, new OEC vols, new tech vols, new, well, before they came out with the new materials grade chart around 2008, every single event was some new lecture series that had been discovered and, you know, restored. And for the first time, you get this new OT hatting lecture. I mean, it was a little silly, but to me, because that's the Scientology I grew up in, I sort of feel like I figured out for myself how those events made sense. But now you go, but L. Ron Hubbard, like Scientology did just fine for 30 plus years without them. That's like, how did they control everyone?
There was no control. Everyone had their own lives. There was no control. Like what they have now of all the public, you weren't involved in their business. You weren't involved in their lives.
I was
They
born in the
came
wrong
they went on
time.
course, they came in, they got sessions, and they continued with their life.
Right. They would actually have them, you know, reach out to their family and friends and become a field staff member and things like that. But none of this, you know, you have to be here at this and everybody, it's mandatory or you're going to ethics, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And Scientology was different then, you know, I mean, they were selling Dianetics books, you know, and, you know, they were reaching out. They were body routing out. You couldn't body route somebody right now. I mean, they were like, you're trying to accost me. But I mean, in Washington, D.C., right after muster at 7 o'clock, the executive director of the org would send every staff member out onto the street on Connecticut Avenue, and they had to body route somebody into Division 6 before they could go back on post. So there was always people, you know, in there.
Yeah, and they also did PE lectures. You know, that was
Personal
like a weekly
efficiency.
thing, personal efficiency on the weekend or in the evenings. And people would actually come in and bring their friends for the lecture and learn the basic Scientology stuff. That was the biggest event any org would have, is new people coming in for a PE lecture, which they don't have anymore. They just, flip a button for a video?
Isn't it fun? Isn't it funny that back then the expansion of Scientology kind of hinged on or was dependent upon personalities? It was individuals who were what did they call it? Public. There was a word for them. People that were really good in Div 6. What was it called? The public division personality. I forget. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? There was some word they used for someone that was really good at being out there, being a public facing Div 6 personality. I think it was just called a Div 6 personality.
Okay.
Yeah, their personality. Yeah.
And the success of an organization hinged on there being a charismatic person who was sort of a good spokesperson for Scientology in the area, was good at talking, was good at being relatable. And that's sort of who would funnel people into Scientology. And it seems to me that for Scientology to have gotten away from that, it must be that Scientology scared away or kicked out or got rid of all those people, because there's no natural explanation for why those people ceased to exist naturally.
They did, because my father, when they went and wiped out the mission network with the finance police, they also went after my dad because he was making money as a PE lecturer, because the org or the mission would pay for him to go there, and they'd pay him a certain amount per head that came into his lectures. He'd have 200 people on a personal efficiency course.
And Janis, he didn't just do that. He did how to disseminate too. I did one of his courses in DC in the mid 70s. I was 16 years old, and he did a whole weekend where he actually trained you on how to find people's ruins, how to find their ruin, and how to disseminate to them and get them into Scientology. And your dad was a master at it. I'd never seen anybody like him. He was an amazing man.
He wrote a book, Tell It Like It Is, which was all about how to disseminate Scientology.
Yeah.
And he learned himself in 1956. He ran an ad in a paper in a little country sheep town, and he had 8 people show up for his first lecture. And by the end of the week, he had 1 person left. But he kept going.
You know, it's funny. It's funny. I kind of want to respond to a comment that I saw in here, but I might not be able to find it to bring it up. And it has to do with like the comment was something along the lines of, "Geez, it sounds like you guys would still be in Scientology if L. Ron Hubbard was still around." And I want to speak on this subject, because the thing is, if if Scientology, like what people in present time find so objectionable about Scientology is what it is and what it has become. And what it has become, in my opinion, is certainly a product of what LRH created in the first place. But I don't think there's any denying the fact that Scientology is different today than what it used to be. And that inflection point is not necessarily when L. Ron Hubbard died. Even under L. Ron Hubbard's leadership, Scientology was something very different in 1965 than it was in 1975, than it was in 1985. And there was a whole period where Scientology didn't even think of itself as a religion. It didn't want to be a religion. It was like, that's the last thing we would call ourselves. There was a period where, correct me if I'm wrong, Janis, because you would know better than I, where Scientology probably could have been described as just a very enthusiastic self-help group. Yes. As far as how they thought, how they acted, how they treated each other, they didn't think of themselves as some senior, better people necessarily than everyone around them. And I guess one of the things that I wanted to say here is that if that is what Scientology was, it was just a self-help group participating, didn't bankrupt people. People weren't forced to disconnect from people. It was essentially reading books and doing this counseling. Regardless of the fact of whether I believe auditing works or not. I mean, I think if it works, it doesn't have anything to do with what L. Ron Hubbard did. It wouldn't be something, you wouldn't see me doing videos about it because it wouldn't be something that was destroying people's lives.
Right.
There's so many self-help guru shit stuff that exists in this world that people think helps them. You're not going to find me running around telling people what they should or shouldn't do. Right. And I certainly don't blame David Miscavige uniquely and solely for what Scientology became, because by the end of L. Ron Hubbard's life, Scientology had become something pretty bad, in my opinion. I don't know. How do you feel about it? You knew L. Ron Hubbard and everything. How do you feel about that progression over time of what Scientology was and what it became?
Well, yeah, because I grew up in a mission. Everyone was friendly. Everyone was happy. They came in, did their course, told the ashtray to stand up and to sit down in the chair. You know, that was normal to me.
Same.
Yeah. But as time progressed, then at St. Hill, well, hang on a sec. Let's go back to Melbourne because people liked our mission. They loved my mom and my dad. But my mom would send people up to the HASI, which was the local class 4 org, and people would come back to the mission and bring other people with them because they preferred our mission where everything was friendly than the HASI where it was a big stat push. And my mother actually got declared in 1965 for ripping off the HASI because people wanted to come and do service at the mission and not at the org. So disconnection Kate was out at that point, and we all had to disconnect from our mother. And then it wasn't working with dad raising 3 kids. So mom came back to the house and dad moved out. And then she couldn't handle her declare and ended up going to St. Hill. And only there did she get it sorted out. But Scientology got banned in Victoria. So the whole family and 100 other families all moved to England. And we're all still in our same group of people. So then we're all at St. Hill, and it did start getting heavy ethics then. Hubbard started coming out with the conditions, but you didn't get declared so easily.
Yeah.
As nowadays, you just leave or you just say something, you get declared or disconnected from, and you don't even know you're disconnected from. At least back in those days, you knew if you were declared, and you knew what you did, and you had to do the A to E in order to get back in good standing.
Let me ask you a question. How early, I want to understand where this, the timeline and the progression of things. What was the name of the gentleman that was kind of broadly known as, who L. Ron Hubbard said was the first clear? Was his name Reg?
John McMasters.
John McMasters?
John McMasters, yeah. John Mac.
What year did L. Ron Hubbard decide he was an evil suppressive person and got rid of him?
Oh, that was around 68, 69.
So after the Sea Org was created?
Yes.
Okay. There was another guy who was a famous supervisor in the St. Hill Special Briefing course? Was it Reg Park?
Red Sharp.
Reg Sharp. Wasn't he sort of a big important person in Scientology aside from just being a supervisor in the briefing course?
Yes, he used to run worldwide at one point. When Hubbard was gone, Reg ran it. Reg is also the person who loaned LRH the money to buy St. Hill, and apparently never got paid back.
No.
Yeah.
So when did L. Ron Hubbard decide that Reg was an evil, suppressive person and got rid of him?
After he decided that he didn't want to pay him back. He's like, I got to get rid of this debt, so I'll just declare him, and then we'll forget about the whole thing.
Oh my God.
But like, when was that? Does anybody remember?
Mid-60s.
So
I remember Reg was there when I showed up at St. Hill in 66. Reg was there.
So would you say Reg got the heave-ho before John McMasters?
Yes.
Okay. And I wanted to ask about those because it seems to me that it's not that Scientology didn't enforce this disconnection fair game policy, earlier on. It's just that it was more rare, which honestly doesn't excuse it.
Right.
Okay. So was it the introduction of the ethics conditions that really changed the face or the beingness, if you will, of Scientology, what it felt like to be a Scientologist?
I think so, because when I first showed up at St. Hill, it was a happy place, lots of students, the place was buzzing. And then suddenly the men are growing beards and they're wearing a rag around their arm or a chain, and no one's going home. They're sleeping under their desks because of all the penalties from the ethics conditions. And I did not enjoy going to St. Hill anymore. I'd just go home and do my homework instead of riding my bike to the hill.
Aaron,
Yeah.
also, we interviewed Ken Urquhart, who was L. Ron Hubbard's butler and then eventually his personal communicator at St. Hill and on the ship. And he feels that when Hubbard came back after he was kicked out of Rhodesia, and then he basically was going to be kicked out of England, he couldn't go back, that was a big turning point for Hubbard because he didn't feel safe. And a lot of the ethics stuff and everything, like Janis said, started coming in at St. Hill. So, Hubbard was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and he had a lot of crazy stuff, but it seemed like when he was under pressure, basically, or on the run, things got worse for people.
Yeah, and he even stated when he had his motorbike accident in 1973, he even stated then he was PTSD, and Mary Sue had just briefed him that morning he was not allowed in Spain. So that just shut down a whole bunch of ports for us. So he got worse each time he got kicked out of a place.
And not to justify anything that he did or Mary Sue did, but it became then much more so, the governments are against me. We have to handle it with the Guardian's office, okay? And Snow White happens, and all the different problems in the United States and in England and all like that. And he didn't feel safe. And as a matter of fact, that's every time he blew, from the Clearwater, it's because, Gabe Cesaris is giving us problems and there's reporters looking for me. Skedaddle, get out of there. Same thing happened at La Quinta, right, Janis?
Yeah, reporters showed up.
Around, skedaddle to Sparks, Nevada. And then the same thing happened in 1980. Skedaddle, ended up at Creston until the day he died. And all he wanted was an all clear, right? He wanted all of the lawsuits and the IRS investigations over so he could do what he did. So he was a very paranoid person. And so he was not this great OT, but he was very paranoid, and he could not do what he wanted to do.
It is amazing that for someone who Scientologists think was, fully cause over matter, energy, space, time, and form, and able to causatively exteriorize at will with full perceptions, he was always running from something.
Yeah.
Janis, one question I had, whether as far as like inflection points in the world of Scientology, or what it meant or what it felt to even be a member of the Scientology community. We've mentioned the introduction of ethics conditions. I've always wondered if the introduction of the OT levels was an inflection point in the same way that we're talking about. Like, did it change Scientology from being something that made people feel better and be more at cause over life to now the fate of the entire Galactic Federation rests solely on what we do and the delivery of the OT levels, and we must protect Scientology at all costs? Or did that go hand in hand with the lower conditions? Like, I don't know when the OT levels were released. I don't know when the lower conditions were released. Do you happen to know the dates?
No, but let me think here. In 67, he was in Las Palmas working on OT3. 66, they were clear. So 65 was the clearing course.
Okay.
And it was heavy. A lot of the PCs at St. Hill in 66 and 67 and 68 were a lot of power processing PCs, so grade 5 and 5A. And then it got into the OT levels. But the OT levels, I don't know, everyone talks about Xenu and all this kind of thing, and I never looked at it that way.
What did you look at it as? What do you mean?
Well, that kind of seems to be the focus point people have as the main thing. This is what Scientologists believe in. But it never hit me like that.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, to me, it was all about communication. That's the first thing you do is a communication course. Your first grade auditing is communication release. And then it was problems, and then it was overts and withholds. And that's more of what Scientology was to me, was getting basics in on your life so that you can control things around you, not these OT powers. That went along with people at St. Hill talking about spaceships landing and leaving their body and going and visiting spaceships. And you think, okay, well, she's the one wearing the purple stockings.
You know, it's funny. It's funny that it makes sense to me, though, that you would have a different perspective on it, because you were sort of there for the natural progression of all this. Right. For me, growing up in Scientology, I still definitely considered that, like, the body of what anyone was going to be exposed to was the lower level stuff, the communication stuff, the memory, all that, just sort of common sense, helpful stuff. But make no mistake, I believe that the reason we are all here, the reason for any of this, the reason for even introducing someone through the communication drills, sure, that helps them. Sure, that's cute. That's nice. But the reason we're really here is these magical OT levels and getting everyone to full OT, and the fate of the Galactic Federation rests on it, and freeing people from the Between Lives implant station and the prison planet. I mean, for me, I was like, even at the lower levels, and it was the lower levels because I never did anything but the lower levels. And this is still what was my conception of the weight of all this.
Well, and at the time that you're talking about, when we were in, I did my OT levels and all that, right? But like, the OT levels were confidential for a reason, because Hubbard didn't want everybody knowing that this crazy stories are out there. You know what I mean? I mean, it's different if you go OT3, Xenu, and all this other stuff. That is really crazy. The problem is that once you start going up that bridge and you become more and more aware of the fact that, oh my God, Hubbard really knows what he's talking about. You get indoctrinated, right? You get brainwashed into it. You basically will believe anything, because I'll tell you what happened. You read the story, you read the OT3 materials, which I did, right? And like Janis said, to me, that was just Hubbard telling a story. What made it real for me was when I picked up the cans and I solo audited OT3, and he said to look for masses on your body, and I could find them and they would read, because I believed as a Scientologist that the meter read when something was there. And then I did what he said to do and it would go away. Then I thought, okay, well, whatever, who cares about Xenu or this other stuff? This seems to be working for me. Now, in retrospect, I've been out for a long time. I don't think the OT levels, I think the lower levels, the grades and things like that, they really changed me as a person for the better. The OT levels, I wasn't out to be superhuman or anything like that. And that could have been just Hubbard just dreaming up stuff. I don't know. But anyway, that's my impression of it.
Yeah. See, also another thing that didn't surprise me with the OT3 is being with Hubbard all the time, and we'd sail into different ports, and we'd sail into Tangier, and he'd talk about all these spaceships in this cliff here, and and he'd talk about
Sci-fi.
different things going on in the what was that?
Sci-fi, science fiction
Sci-fi.
writer.
He'd tell all these sci-fi type stories up on the bridge or out on deck. So when I read OT3, it was just kind of, oh, this is one of his stories,
Right.
But did you not believe the stories?
Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. And I'd stand there and I'd go, shouldn't be thinking this. And I'd try and put it in the back of my head.
Because what I've always wondered, I mean, it's easy for me to armchair quarterback people that were there, way before my time, because I was never exposed to L. Ron Hubbard. So it was easier for me to sort of believe the mystique surrounding L. Ron Hubbard. To me, one of the most glaring, to use a Scientology word, glaring outpoints is that everyone in Scientology is told that once you get up to the upper OT levels, particularly if you finish the L rundowns, you have gained the ability to exteriorize at will with full perceptions. And everything L. Ron Hubbard went through in his life would not have even been possible, meaning all the negative things that he was embroiled with, and I'm being chased by governments and they're after me, and all these intelligence missions that we have to run. None of that would have been necessary if L. Ron Hubbard had the ability to causatively exteriorize with full perception at will.
Right.
Why did no one around him, and this is where the armchair quarterbacking comes in, I feel a little bad doing it, but why did no one around him go, hey, listen, fat man, you obviously do not have the abilities we are all being promised?
And I'll tell you why. Because you would have been offloaded off that ship within an hour. Your loved ones are still on board and you are off. You are dumped in the middle of a country with no money, no nothing. And so the best thing is just to put it in the back of your head and in amazement, watch all these people who are just sucking up every word he says. And that's where, as a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old, you kind of like, what's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. That I'm not seeing what they're seeing with these stories and what this man is saying. And then you just kind of, I better just keep this quiet and just put it in the back of your head and not say anything.
And then, Aaron, I want to say something that's like, peeling the onion after over 30 years, reading Barefaced Messiah by Russell Miller, okay, which I just recently reread after 30 years. Hubbard was a storyteller and told, crazy tales from the time he was a young boy, you know what I mean? So that was kind of his natural thing. But I wasn't in Scientology. And I think most Sea Org members, when they join, they're not in Scientology because they want to be OTs. They're in Scientology because they want to help people get off drugs, stay off drugs, communicate, do better in school, do the student hat, get rid of their depression. I mean, our society is so depressed. It has so many problems. And we felt like we had the answers to that, okay? And the reason I say that is because for me, I completely changed on my lower grades auditing. I was a completely different teenager, okay? I was very shy. I was very introverted. I was easy to piss off, okay? Like I could not control my temper. And I did my lower grade auditing and I did my communications course and things like that. It changed me as a person for the better to this day. You know what I mean? And so it was lasting. And drugs, okay? You get rid of the attitudes, emotions, sensations, and pains attached to why you take drugs, okay? You don't have a desire to take drugs anymore. I mean, that's just been my experience, both as somebody getting auditing and also delivering auditing to somebody and seeing somebody change with those processes across from you. And we had a really good conversation with Ken Urquhart on our part 4 interview that we did with him. And it's the same thing. I mean, Hubbard could be crazy as a loon, okay? Steve Jobs, he was terrible as a person, as a family member and all that. But guess what? He was great at inventing products, right? Well, Hubbard had a lot of things, whether or not he developed them himself or took them from somebody else. He was able to codify it and have people follow it. And we saw real changes. That's why I joined the Sea Org at 17 years old in the 70s, because I wanted to help people. You know, it wasn't I want to be exterior with full perceptions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I think that's, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I think for people to understand how anyone gets sucked into what is a cult like Scientology or many other groups similar to it, I think it is important to understand the components that exist at the lower levels that do provide some sort of help to the person as they come in. It's sort of what gets them hooked in the first place. Now, I'll add as a caveat to that, the second generation experience does tend to be different, because in many cases, the kids are forced from day one to be participating in something they didn't want to participate in. And that adds a completely different component to it.
I went through that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a second gen, and I can see with all those kids, but yeah, I was left there with parents who were proud that I was there. So that, you know, and all those poor second gen kids, they were abused and forced to do stuff they didn't want to do and be where they didn't want to be.
Yeah.
You know, but Janis, to speak on your behalf, on your favor, you were running continents at a young age in your 20s. I mean, we've talked about this. People, you know, we know people whose kids are like older than we were when we left the Sea Org, and they can't tie their own shoes. I mean, Janis had responsibilities. I had responsibilities. And when we left, we were able to use those abilities to, you know, be successful in business despite all of the fair gaming and the crap that went on. Janis never finished high school, no GED, and yet she eventually became the president of the Mortgage Brokers Association of Nevada. I mean, you know, so that didn't just come from nothing. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh yeah, she was, you know, she had a lot of discipline, and she learned a lot of stuff when she was in the Sea organization in Scientology.
I definitely learned discipline.
I'll tell you, and there's a difference between maybe because I mean, I'll side with you on this one, but there's a difference between skills or lessons that you learn because of this your experience being socialized into what is essentially a military experience. That is separate from something you got from Scientology, in my opinion. That's separate from the bridge. That's separate from auditing. That's separate from anything. But I'm agreeing with you as well. The thing that you're saying you got from your experience, I also feel like I got from my experience. And yet I'll tell you, as a young child, looking at the objectives processes and looking at various sec check forms and seeing all the weird sexual stuff that was in there, I was always like, oh, auditing? No, thank you. I do not want any of that shit. Because like even the objectives, I never did my objectives because I saw on one of the processes, it was touch that table, touch your insert whatever fucking sexual word. I was like, why is this an auditing process? Like that's one of the objectives. That's one of the objectives.
I remember that.
It's on the
I do.
Yes.
It's on the objectives.
That had to be changed after we did them because I never ever did that.
That was not in anything I
see.
ever
That's
saw.
the other problem. You have Miscavige changing stuff, you know.
Yeah, and Miscavige is obsessed with sexuality and all that kind of stuff. And even as a kid, I would look at this shit and I'd be like, "You are out of your mind if you think I'm going to cooperate with any of this bullshit." And yet, I still did take away from my Scientology experience what you would call the discipline of the work ethic. And you go, yeah, but that's not what Scientology is about. That's like, okay, you were put into a labor camp for 15 years. And so you're a good worker. Excellent. That's not a reason to go into a labor camp.
Yeah.
You guys, okay, if we start tackling some of these questions that have been popping up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Risa, we didn't mean to have you there on the sideline. I hope we're not.
No, it's like I said earlier, I'm fascinated by the stuff we're learning. And Aaron, I just want to say before we go into that, you made a good point. Janis and Mark, to me, are very much the original people who it's a pattern. My mom, Janis, you remind me so much of my mom, like just this free spirit, beautiful person who wants to help. That just radiates from you. I see that. That is not uncommon, Aaron. If you notice that, like from the people of the past, that was what it was. That's how I gather it. Versus now, the people who are born into it, we're these selfish assholes. I want that OT8 carrot. I want to be like Maleficent, reading minds and casting spells. I wasn't into helping people. It's like, I got to be OT8.
Yeah, no.
And the crazy thing is that that being an OT8 is not going to save the world. Okay. Getting people to not use drugs and not be dependent on drugs and being able to study and learn, those types of things would really make a difference in this world today.
Yes. But I'm just telling you, being born into it, that was the carrot. Like, you are not cool unless you're on your OT levels, really. I mean, that was kind of my family I was born into. And then Kansas City has tons of new OT8s. We have like a big number. So those are the people who always spoke at the events, and they made it look like you're not cool unless you climb to this point. And so I was like, well, I want to cast spells too.
But check this out. Check this out. Here's also an example of a huge difference between, the original generation and what we have now. Mark, you say sincerely that Scientology is about getting people off of drugs. I can tell you that my experience as a staff member and SEERG member of my generation is Scientologists don't give a shit about getting people off of drugs. That's just something we do so that when the press gives us shit, we can pretend like we're doing stuff. If you're a hardcore drug addict, we don't want, okay, I finished an Narcanon, I'm rehabbed. Like, we don't want you. Like, unless you're paying for a lot of auditing or training or you're going to join staff, it's like, please, there's a ton of people in this world who weren't just, didn't just graduate from Narcanon. Thank you very much. Like, not at the top of the list. And so but that's a difference. You genuinely felt that getting people off of drugs was a valuable service Scientology was interested in providing. Whereas I felt like that was just something we paid lip service to.
But see that here's the difference though. Hubbard required no drugs. If you're not gonna make progress up the bridge if you have drugs. The drug rundown was at the bottom of the bridge. Okay. You could not drink drugs or drink alcohol or take drugs prior to going in session because he considered it a barrier to making case gain. So I mean, that was the priority. I mean, when you did your the first auditing you would do on the bridge was a life repair to basically handle any situations. And then you handled your drugs, any drugs that you had or any considerations, because he considered it a barrier to making gains.
That's true. I mean, Scientologists obviously aren't supposed to be doing drugs, but I didn't consider Scientology to be some movement that was actually getting people off of drugs. And the only reason Narcanon is a thing is because Narcanon makes so much effing money. If Narcanon cost money, Scientology would not bother, in my opinion.
Originally, Narcanon didn't even exist until some Scientologists, not even the organization, but some Scientologists, one in particular, said, hey, I can use this to help get people off drugs. And he started his own little center. And it wasn't even under any radar. It was under the radar. Nobody knew it existed except my mother would help him from the side. He was doing stuff and she would flow him support.
Yeah.
And then they would co-opt it later.
Yeah. And then it just got bigger and bigger. And then the Guardian's office got involved. And then when the Guardian's office was gotten rid of, it became a sector under ABLE or SOCO, social.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Super fascinating stuff. All right, let's start tackling some of these questions. I'll do them mostly in chronological order. Michelle Carpenter, I hope you never kick off your live streams with anything substantive because almost all of them start with you halfway through a sentence. Do they really? I didn't even. There must just be some lag baked into the system that I haven't accounted for. Sorry, Michelle. Michelle does say it could be user error. I always get on too early. I'm in Kansas City too. Excited for our new guest. How about that? Okay, let's see. Hope Livingwood. Question: can someone share relatable Reese's link? It's not appearing. Okay, good. That's why I announced that earlier. So that's fine. We can get rid of that one. Okay, Sebastian Elder. In Scientology, are Thetans eternally old in the past, or were they created at a definite time in the past? If created at a certain time, by what or who? I love this question. Who wants to tackle it?
Mark?
Someone not named Aaron.
To be honest with you, when I read that question, I never cared. You know what I mean?
They didn't ask if you cared.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, when I was getting auditing and I went past lives, I didn't care who I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what the question is, like, a Thetan is a spirit,
right?
And it's not that the spirits over there, we are the spirit. We are the Thetan. We are what creates.
But
Okay,
we're
so
76 trillion years old. I mean, that's what I was always told.
Exactly.
But
We are
did they
the
ever say
Thetan.
like where that started?
No, it was just there.
Yeah, they just told me my age. I don't know where I came from though.
It's so funny the things that L. Ron Hubbard decided were not important to get into, such as, you guys remember in the beginning of Keeping Scientology Working, we will not speculate as to how I came to rise above the bank. And you're like, I think that's something we should speculate about. Like, it kind of is what everything hinges on, bro.
That's
Okay.
neither here nor there.
And the fact that I'm pretty sure, I'm going to use the same number Reese used, said that basically all Thetans are 76 trillion years old. And you're like, okay, why 76 trillion and not 77? Like, how do you know? Like, clearly that means we're supposed to believe that you have perfect recall back to the creation of the theta existence. And yet he never even once even implied that creation came from, well, actually the only place he described it was in the factors. He said in the beginning, there was a decision and the decision was to be. And it was just this stupid little write-up that he did that was basically explained nothing other than, if someone were to ask me the answer to this question, say L. Ron Hubbard said that 76 trillion years ago, we all collectively as spiritual beings just decided to come into existence, and you should just take my word for it. And there's nothing else to, like, collectively, theta. What do you got, Mark?
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if you remember in the L. Ron Hubbard death video, Pat Broker came out, right? And he held up this worksheet from L. Ron Hubbard's solo auditing, and it had all these zeros, and he goes, this is L. Ron Hubbard dating an incident, for OT 9, 10, or 12, whatever the hell it was. And it was just to impress people, like, he's delved way back in time. I didn't really care. But also I was going to say one other thing too. You realize that L. Ron Hubbard, he was doing research on himself with cans and basically going back into his psyche and into his mind to come up with this stuff. And that's why he had folders and folders and folders for OT 8, 9, and 10 and 15 or whatever. That's why Miscavige had to get those back from Pat Broker before he could kick Pat Broker out, was because they believed that that's where all the material would be for the future OT levels. Yeah, and it was just all Hubbard just doing his own thing in session.
But what you just said is an incredible thing to note, because what Pat Broker got up there and showed at L. Ron Hubbard's death announcement in some ways completely contradicted what L. Ron Hubbard had been saying for 50 years, which is that we're 76 trillion years old, which, by the way, is an interesting thing to say when he also said Thetans are ecstatic that have no position in space or time. If you have no position in space or time, then you cannot have been created 76 trillion years ago. Right. But don't think about it too deeply or you might get kicked out. So, Pat Broker got up there with a date that had, I don't know, close to 1,000 zeros after it. And you're like, okay, what are we supposed to think of that other than go, wow,
seems legit.
Aaron, you got that exactly right. Wow. That's what we were supposed to think.
Okay, Marion Calabro. Question: Aaron mentioned recently that Danny Masterson did not climb the bridge. Isn't that mandatory in Scientology? Just curious. Who wants to opine on this for a little bit, of this weird phenomena of people being Scientology for 40, 50, 60 years and not actually moving on the bridge or going clear or stuff like that?
Do you actually know where he was on the bridge?
He was not clear.
I had actually heard he wasn't allowed on services because of what he had been doing.
I had not heard that. Do you remember who you heard that from?
No, I don't. But I'd heard he'd actually been prevented from going up the bridge because he's continued out ethics.
Well, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, we're close to the same age, right? You and I. I didn't mean to cut you off, but were you clear?
The highest actual bridge step I ever tested to completing was the purification rundown.
Okay, so I don't feel like that's that question. I mean, I don't feel like that's uncommon. I was in for 35 years and I was just getting to my grades. So,
Exactly.
And I paid for my grades when I was a teenager. I literally did grades 0 through 4 in high school. I paid for them myself. I got
what?
over 100 hours of auditing. Yeah.
Look at you, Mr.
Yeah.
Hotshot.
Well,
Holy
exactly. And the thing was, is
deep
back
pockets.
in those days, back in those days, 12 and a half hours of auditing was $500. But because I was under 18, they gave me like a 30% discount. So it was like $350 for 12 and a half hours. So I would work in the summertime at my summer job, save up my money. And then in the fall and in the winter, I would get all my auditing done. Okay. Because my dad, he didn't want to pay for it because he said, that would be out of exchange. You need to do this yourself, right? So that's how I got through my grade 0 to 4, was paying for that. And from that, I was Dianetic clear. And then I got on my OT levels, and I did my OT levels, and I was all the way up on OT 7, auditing solo, auditing knots for like the last 2 years I was there, until the last year I was just getting nonstop sec checks,
Wow.
Well, the price was
I got-
higher when
Yeah,
Aaron and I were-
I got my grades for free because when I was at St. Hill as a 10-year-old and 11-year-old, there was all these students there on doing the academy levels, training up to class 4, and also briefing course students, and they needed PCs. And it was their job as trainees to go and find their own PC. So James Byrne, who many people know, I was his PC for his academy levels, and I got my grade 0 to 4.
Lucky duck.
And that's how staff got up the bridge. That's how
Yeah.
they were supposed to get up the bridge in Clearwater in the Sea organization. Was they were supposed to be for the people on their apprenticeship,
Internship.
right? But then they would use the interns to audit public when they had too many publics, so they didn't have so much going on.
Mhm.
But that's the other reason. Listen, the other reason why I got up the bridge, and the other reason why I got so highly trained when I was in the Sea Org, was because I took my 2.5 hours of enhancement every day. I know that sounds bizarre because most people were, working around the clock or didn't get enough sleep. But one of the reasons I joined the Sea Org is because I wanted to progress up the bridge. So I took advantage of that,
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that was before David Miscavige made it essentially impossible to train as a Scientology auditor.
No, exactly. And then someone like Danny Masterson. I mean, I've heard stories since we left about Miscavige going like, oh, people are going to have to redo their objectives for 500 hours. So I don't care that you're OT 7 or whatever. You're going to redo them. Oh, no, now you're going to redo your pure.
Uh-oh. Is it just him?
It's just
Mhm.
him.
Okay.
He got
that?
so passionate about it.
He froze.
Oh, what happened? Did I do something wrong?
Xenu froze you. Xenu froze you in
sorry.
glycol.
I touched a wire. Sorry. But anyway, he's put so many stops on people moving up. So it's no wonder people, I mean, right now they're just trying to get as many pennies as they can out of the public that they have. And then they don't deliver anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's tackle. Oh, we got Gary Jackson Moorhead in the house.
Oh, hey, Jackson.
All right, Gary says, little fun fact, Apple Box Boy had all first int events televised by satellite. I remember that because every event was a nightmare. Nobody could get the satellite to work, the satellite dish. I remember a Bruce P in a lean to crude, what?
Bruce Plotz.
Yeah, and a lean to crude tent out behind MCI trying to acquire the signal with Dave standing on an Apple box.
That's amazing. I absolutely remember being a child in the Philly org while all the adults were freaking out because they couldn't get the satellite dish pointed in the right direction to get the signal for the int events. It was incredible. Okay,
Wow.
Rue says, we have a televised congressional hearing on Wednesday about unidentified aerial phenomena and UFOs. What would members think of this? Just curious. Can you say Fifth Invader Force coming back? Uh-oh. What do you guys think Scientologists make of the recent sort of like government disclosure, kind of admitting they don't know what these things are?
The government doesn't know what they are?
Yeah, they've released UFO. They've released footage from fighter jets and everything, saying we don't know what this shit is.
Scientologists know what it is.
It's the aliens.
Janis, do you remember the story that apparently L. Ron Hubbard said that when the United States sent Voyager out, a satellite way out into the galaxy, right? They put like music from the Beatles, they put a whole bunch of stuff on there. And I heard the story that Hubbard said that was a big mistake because basically he's telling, the other planets that were out here, come and get us.
Right. That's right.
That's right. L. Ron Hubbard definitely says the aliens are not our friends.
That's correct.
And
the
not just
Marcadians.
Right,
and not just because they're going to, treat us the way we treated the Native Americans. They're not our friends because they already know we're here. They're the ones who put us here.
Well,
They don't.
in 1978, he actually said we had to clear the planet within 5 years because the Marcadians were coming.
And tell the people who the Marcabians are.
Aliens.
The Marcab Confederacy.
The bad guys. Are they the Greys or were they another race of aliens?
I don't know if they're gray, green, or purple.
That's because that's one of the details L. Ron Hubbard didn't think it was important enough to get into. Is like, anyway, Scientologists believe in aliens, believe in UFOs. I believe that Elon Musk, if he saw the aliens, would be honest with us about it. And he says, I ain't seen shit. So I don't know what the military's talking about. But anyway, I want to believe in aliens so bad, you guys. Growing up, that one of my biggest things, I wanted to be abducted so bad. I just...
You didn't want that probe thing, right?
I didn't want to get probed. I just wanted to be abducted, okay? I just wanted to be up there with the aliens in the spaceships doing my thing. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's see. Lisa Marchbanks, Dragonfish Handmade Goods says, just getting here. It's so great to see Reese. Congratulations on the new channel. Cannot wait.
So nice. I'm Facebook friends with her now.
Very cool.
I have so many new friends. That's so nice. Guys, thanks for the support and liking my channel, or is it subscribe? I got to get with the modern times. Is that what you call it? Subscribing.
Subscribing is definitely what. Yeah.
I probably shouldn't be here. I don't know anything.
And also tell people they need to subscribe to our channel, right, Janis? Or we're both going to ethics. Isn't that right?
That's right. I don't know who the ethics officer is, but stats better be up.
Mark says it's you. He's always got this fear. He's got this fear in his eye whenever it comes on.
Well, everybody get over there and subscribe to our channel and hit that like button.
And then you can find Reese at Relatable Reese. All right, let's tackle the next one. Eris D says Scientology is coming to an end. Yeah, remarkably, it doesn't even need our help. I just enjoy helping. It's my pleasure to help it, but they seem to be accomplishing the goal on their own quite well, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, they're getting it done.
Joni Cummings says, I don't have a question. I just want to say you all have strength that within you to get out of a cult, and you are all beautiful. Well, at least the three of you are.
Aww.
How about
Thank
That's so
you.
Nice.
Thank you.
It's really sweet.
that? Hill 10 Fap. Oh my God. AKA CO Bilf. Question. Pierre. I never knew how to say Pierre's last name. How do you say Pierre's last name?
Etier. No,
you guys.
Etier.
Okay.
I'm French. French. Pierre Etier.
By the way, that's why I always say Karen's last name, Karen de la Carriere, but she says it Carriere. How did you guys say it on the ship? Did you always say Carriere?
Yeah, Karen de la Carriere.
Because I keep wanting to tell her that someone told her name is pronounced incorrectly, but
yeah, no.
Yes, you had to be there. Okay. Pierre Etier said the class 12s saw upper OT notes on the boat. Was this true?
Well, one, Pierre was not on the ship.
Busted.
But the upper levels were not written up per se, but they would have been in Hubbard's folder. And there was a point where the class 12s all did folder error summary, going through different PC folders of Hubbard's to find errors in order to do a repair on him because he'd been sick.
Is Pierre someone who has continued to audit outside of Scientology, right?
Yeah, he has since passed away.
Yeah.
Is it possible? I don't want to cast aspersions at a dead man, but is it possible? Is he one of those people who was delivering the upper OT levels, or no?
In the independent field, I don't know.
a la Captain Bill
I think-
Robertson and stuff like that?
No, but I think he was doing the L rundowns because he was delivered.
I
those as well.
just mean,
Yeah.
did he have a reason to claim to have seen upper OT level notes?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Stephanie Sandoval, welcome, Reese. Looking forward to your videos.
What a little
Reese,
angel.
Reese, I saw a post in the chat. You're over 500 subscribers already.
Wow.
Hey,
a
that's
big
great.
deal. You guys, thank you. Seriously, what a bunch of little sweet potatoes.
One
Thank
day.
you.
Yeah, me and Reese are going to be doing a lot of videos together. Some of these videos are going to be a lot more fun having someone else to talk to. Okay, so John Sostovsky says Elon Musk is a cyborg. He very well may be, the Galactic Confederacy may very well be operating through him, using AI and robotics technology. For all we know, guys. I mean, that would make for a pretty good story.
Well, if Mr. Bill says so, then yeah.
Oh no!
Okay, this is a great question. Debbie with an I wants to know, what is the difference between a body thetan and an operating thetan?
That is a good question.
A body thetan is stuck to your body. That's the simplicity of it. It's an actual thetan, a spirit, but it's stuck to your body. That's why they call them body thetans.
And an operating
And then when you
thetan
release them, and then when you release them from your body, the theory is that they go and they get another body when it's born, just like we did.
and they become an operating thetan, which is the spirit that operates the body.
Yes. So just to make sure, correct me if I have my Scientology mythology wrong, but are people who are auditing on, OT7 and whatever, are they told that the little process that they're doing to audit the BTs, that the BTs are actually achieving the state of clear as a result of that little process, and then they go off and pick up a body?
You're just
I
releasing them.
have heard that, but I don't remember that in the materials.
Neither do
Okay.
I.
Okay.
You're basically just releasing them from your thetan and your body so that, you are basically free of them.
So
The whole
it's
idea,
interesting.
See what it is Aaron, is that the theory that Hubbard says is that these body thetans that are attached to you, you can actually take on their personality. Like you can actually have their thoughts. You could think it's yours, but it's not. It's coming from these body thetans. So by getting rid of them, you get rid of a negative thought about something that you go, where did that come from? That's his theory on that.
Bipolar.
There's something
Yes,
that actually,
bipolar. Mhm.
there's something that never actually occurred to me until just now. I'm making case gain as we sit here, guys. Technically speaking, since all the OT levels are getting rid of body thetans,
No, they're not.
well, 3, 4, 5, and 7 are,
Yeah,
Oh,
the majority
okay.
of them are. Yeah.
Okay.
and 8 is just some, Technically speaking, if someone wants to say, well, here's the problem. Even in Scientology, oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm stepping all over myself. Operating thetan here is not the same thing as full operating thetan. So let's just, if we want to define operating thetan as someone who has done Scientology's OT levels, okay? And if doing the OT levels is essentially the process of getting rid of all these BTs, technically, isn't a Scientology OT a thetan who doesn't have BTs?
That's got to be the end result.
Isn't that essentially what makes someone an OT, is having gotten rid of all your BTs? So a thetan without BTs would be an operating thetan.
Isn't
Well,
that
you're
native
not-
Yeah, well,
state?
that's part of it.
Doing
There's other
levels.
levels that he had, for other abilities.
Well, not really though, right? Because they're not there, right?
No, but I mean, that was what his theory was. That was what he was. That's why there's OT 15, 20, whatever.
But
Yeah.
here's where I'm going with this, because I don't want this person to actually have the idea, oh shit, battery's out.
Oh no, speak among yourselves.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Bummer.
Reese, I hope we're not overwhelming you with all this OT talk.
No, she already has
Born and
pneumonia.
raised, not overwhelmed, not at all.
I just don't want someone to think that that Scientologists believe that when you get rid of a BT in auditing, that BT is now an operating thetan, because that's not necessarily true.
No.
In Scientology, you have to do the OT levels. That's what they think an operating thetan is. But technically, if a BT once blown does not have any of its own BTs, you could argue they are an operating thetan.
Yeah, but as soon as it gets a body, there's going to be body thetans attaching to the body, which you then have to get rid of.
That's how they get you. That's how they get you.
It's just a big, squirrel in the hamster wheel.
Mark, one sec. What is on your hand?
Oh, it's just I have tendonitis in my wrist, so it's like a compression glove. Sorry.
Okay.
I was wondering the same thing. I thought he was going Michael Jackson on us.
Killer.
All right, if your dog's gonna howl like that, just be quick with that.
I know.
Button.
I'm trying to do it right now.
Okay. Jen Mint says, "Love SPTV on Mondays. Sending y'all love. Thank you so much." And Eric D with a super sticker, and Rural SD Lawyer. Reese, welcome to SPTV. I'm glad you are willing to share your stories. We are Facebook friends now too. I suggested that you become a life coach.
Well, what a sweet little strawberry seed. Thank you. That's so nice. What a little angel.
I love all these endearment terms.
Oh, I do it all the time.
You know who came in on Janis's video the other day, our live stream? No, actually, was it the one that you did with the Never Ends, right? Her granddaughter walked in and she didn't have any clothes on.
YouTube will get you.
That would be me.
I'm like, go get some clothes on.
That's my middle name. That's so nice though. Seriously, thank you. I'm just happy to be here. Thank you. I have a question. When you said a second ago, I'm making case gain, which was a joke. They tell us SPs don't make case gain. You know that, right?
That's true. SPs are incapable of making case gain. That's right.
So first of all, you're not. I wanted to be the first to tell you you're not. But also seriously, I think about that. Like Mark OT8, where does that come into play? Like he did make case gain. He says it helped him. Oh shit. Sorry. He says it helped him, right? So I can think of times where I was helped. I thought I was helped coming out of session. We made case gain, but now we're SPs.
There's just no such thing as an SP. I mean, even when I was still a true believer, I didn't actually believe. Like LRH gave his technical definition of an SP, which is someone who's stuck on an incident in the track because they were almost completely overwhelmed. And now they associate everyone in the present time environment with the people in the incident. And I was like, that's nice. That's great. Maybe that's the technical explanation for Hitler. And I'm like, but I actually made up a word for myself that I kept to myself. I said, if that's the technical definition of an SP, then there's also an administrative definition of an SP. And that's someone who broke the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And breaking the rules has nothing to do with whether you can make case gain or not. So, I mean, that's how, as a true believer, I explained it to myself, is there's the technical definition of an SP, which has almost nothing to do with, one, reality, or two, why people actually get declared SP. That's how I made sense of it. What about you guys?
Well, these days, anyone's an SP. You just leave and you're an SP. You're sitting on the fence and you get off the fence on the wrong side, you're an SP.
I was an SP for not handling my in basket. True fact. It's in my SP declare.
In the older days, it was more extreme activity that got you an SP declare. SP being suppressive person. And then there was a period people just weren't being declared anything, And if you fell off lines, and you were considered ARC broken, as in having upset. And so the orgs used to have to send people out to recover the people that were ARC broken to get them back on lines. And, it was a whole different scene than now where everyone's an SP and let's just disconnect. When LRH has even said, and we showed the policy the other day, they don't need to disconnect. They have the technology to handle. So you don't need to disconnect.
That's true. And, it's interesting to note the difference in how disconnection is enforced. People talk about Tom Cruise. I have said publicly, Tom Cruise would be allowed to see his daughter as long as she was a minor without, getting in trouble with Scientology. Because if the law says you have to be connected to your daughter. It's okay. Maybe you can't get auditing in the meantime, but you're not going to be declared for being connected to a SP. Like Surrey Cruise isn't an SP.
She's not an SP.
But my point, like, and so when I was young, my mom married, and my mom and my dad were never married, but then she married a guy, Frank DiMartino. They had my little brother, Darius DiMartino. At one point, Frank got declared a suppressive person. And during that time, when he was working on his A to E or whatever, he would, he wasn't on lines during that time, but he would come over, he would pick up Darius. My parents were, Frank and my mom were divorced at that point. And he would pick up his kid, and he was allowed to talk to my mom. He was allowed to talk to us. It wasn't this big, giant deal. And yet, fast forward, you've got Tom Cruise disowning his own daughter that he technically speaking shouldn't have had to do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking the reason why so many people get declared nowadays and disconnected from is because there's so much shit that DM has done that is wrong. He doesn't want people talking because then people will find out the truth that he's not supposed to be in charge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Simple as that.
That's right. Totally right. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to make sure I'm trying to stick in chronological order as much as possible here. Pam says, is a body thetan the same as being possessed in other beliefs? Kind of, yes, right?
It can happen.
Yeah.
At least that's what Scientology. In other words, you can take on the valence of that body thetan.
What do you mean it can happen? They're asking, is having body thetans the same thing as being possessed in other beliefs?
Well, I don't know. What I was going to say is, like, you could have something that like restimulates. Something can happen in your life that day, or somebody says something to you and it restimulates. Like all of a sudden you're angry about something that you go like, why am I angry? And you're not, it's not really you. Well, Scientology and Hubbard thinks, well, that's the body thetan was restimulated. And now you're just channeling that emotion.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah. Okay, John Sostovsky is playing the SPTV betting pool. Dead battery. Who had 8-23 in the betting pool? John Sostovsky also wants to say Elon Musk destroy Twitter. Mankind is next when his rockets reestablish communication with his home planets. I love it. Lauren S. says, so excited to finally catch a live. Love that you've been collaborating with all of these amazing channels. Much love. Yes, it's been so much fun.
So nice.
Yeah.
Pam says, P.S. Welcome to Reese. Have subscribed and cannot wait to hear her journey through the cult. Much love from Yorkshire, UK.
What a baby button nose. Thank you, Pam. That's so nice. I'm serious. How many?
You're up to 583 subscribers, says Stephanie
There you
Sandoval.
Wow,
That's
you're almost
crazy.
monetized on the first day.
She still has to get up to
it.
I know, 4,000 hours. Yeah.
They're going to expect you to get to work on that microphone.
Aaron and I have talked about it. I think we're going to be right.
Yep.
According to you and Jeff, I'm going to be on here.
We're going to be doing a lot together. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm excited.
So look, the question here is, when can we expect your first video? I'm guessing tomorrow. Don't you think? We're removing all stops and arbitraries from the lines. I mean, for real.
I'm just going to have you draw up my schedule, Aaron, and I'll sit in front of the camera.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm guessing tomorrow. For the betting pool, I'm saying tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going to get with Aaron on how often I should do this. I don't know, but I'm available. So yes, I'd like to get going on it.
The obvious answer is at least 4 times a day. Okay. Eris D says an SP equals anyone suppressing the sociopathic goals of L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Kitty Com Carol Reese, beautiful cat, reminds me of my one cat, Jesse. He's a lot of work due to a rough start in life, but I love him.
Yes, that's how I think my cat was. She was kind of abused from the shelter, but she has blossomed. I love that cat. I'm a huge animal lover. So if I do start making videos, you guys have to get used to that. The last one, we had the little creature in my arms.
There's nothing YouTube viewers love more than animals in videos.
Well, wait.
Wait till you see
Wow.
our next video, our second part two of Scientology invading Spain. About halfway through at 29 minutes, you'll see something that you don't see on any other video.
Right here on the couch.
Does the
Oh,
dog
wow.
shit on the couch?
No,
No,
two
but
dogs.
almost
Aaron.
as bad.
Oh,
Two dogs.
two
Use
dogs
your
are trying
imagination.
to make a third dog.
Oh, I get
And
it.
I had to point it out to Janis. We were talking to someone, said Janis, because she couldn't see it.
Oh my, that's
Yeah, I was embarrassed.
people
That-
love animals.
That is
Oh,
amazing.
so funny.
That's amazing. Could you imagine if you actually went back and edited it and blurred it out? It'd be even funnier. Or if you only blurred out the half of them, you only blur out, like you put a big black box over the bottom half. Oh my god, that would be really funny.
Yeah, but I don't think we're technically trained enough to do that.
Oh my god.
Debbie
Oh,
with an
God.
I. Has any Sea Org member been given the billion-year contract and said, I signed it in my last life and it's retroactive, or does it start all over from day one so the contract can never be fulfilled?
I don't know.
I hate to break it
I know
to you,
something.
Debbie.
I want to say something interesting about that because I never thought of that. My mother-in-law Brenda has been a staff member at Casey Org for 38 plus years, something like that.
Wow.
I didn't know this, and you guys probably know this, but last time I talked to her when I was in good standing, she told me. So you know how they constantly have to go out for training lineups, oh, we missed something, you got to go back for a couple of years. They have to come back and resign every time they get back from that training lineup. So she told me the one she's on right now, or she was on, right, Aaron, the admin lineup at Flag that's currently going on. She was like 3 years into her contract, and she told me when she gets back, she has to re-sign a new 5-year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
every
I
time
wonder-
you go
Yep.
on to full-time training, you have to start a new 5-year contract when you're done.
Yep.
But isn't it
Then-
interesting
then
how-
But then you don't have a freeloader debt because you've done your contract for all that training.
Correct, but I think it's interesting how that's how they keep you. You could never finish a contract. You'll be on staff forever because they send you out for training every 3 years, and then you
Yeah.
have to restart.
Yeah,
That's horrible.
exactly.
I did not know that until recently when she told me that. I was like,
Well,
what?
You should just become the executive director and refuse to go because you got to run the org and then
You
finish
No,
can't.
this-
You
time
can't
to
be an
go.
executive now. Yeah, you have to do this new training lineup in order to be an executive.
Janis,
Oh.
this is for the new OECFEBC. So not only they're sending the EDs and the DEDs.
If you
you're
don't
not-
go, you're demoted because the
Yeah.
EDKC has been the EDKC for like 30 years and she did not go and she was demoted. Now, also, they put an age limit on it. She's like 72. And if you're 70 or over, you can't go.
Oh,
Wow.
lots more arbitraries added to life in Scientology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. I mean, Janis, have you heard this training evolution that's been going on for over 2 years now? Miscavige said there's too many trainees to fit into the course rooms at the same time as the public during normal business hours. So I'm not shitting you. The out-of-org trainees sleep all day and they study all night, and they've been doing that for 2 years.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
insane. Totally insane.
It should be a crime against humanity.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
That's just part of their usual bullshit stat push.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's because he doesn't want the staff trainees to see how empty Flag's course rooms are, is my personal guess, but I could be wrong. Okay, next one. Oh, Pam. Pam has a spider that she's named Aaron, and the spider is molting.
What?
Pam, you should send me photos. Email me some photos, Pam, at growingupinscientology@gmail.com. Mary Hannah with a super sticker. Oh, Scarlet Begonias. Oh, so Reese, people, your viewers will sort of adopt for themselves a name for themselves. Like Amy's viewers call themselves the Scobies. Bees. Like,
Cute.
okay. So it says voting to be a Reese's Ruby. Thoughts? All right. So if you're watching in the live chat and you like Reese's Ruby, put a 1. If you're not going to vote for Reese's Ruby, go ahead and put a 2. All right,
I
Veronica.
wonder what the ruby part means.
So a ruby is a precious gem. It's
No,
usually red.
it's my birthstone. I don't know what a ruby is, but why?
Because it rhymes.
Aaron, I might have been raised in a cult, but I know what a ruby is, and I'm a woman. I love jewelry. Come on.
You were born in a cult, but not yesterday, right?
Right. 76
all right.
trillion years ago, to be exact.
Reese's Pieces, somebody said.
I
That's
like
right.
Reese. I like the Reese's
Reese's Pieces. That's good.
I like the Reese's Pieces.
That's cute.
In fact, I was thinking if I were to ever send you some sort of a nice gift, it would be my kids went to my kids went to Hershey, PA recently, and they went to I don't know, they have like Hershey Town. They didn't go to Hershey Park, but they have stuff surrounding it, and they brought back Reese's peanut butter cups that were like this fat.
Yes.
And you had to eat it with a spoon. It was
holy diabetes.
incredible.
Now, they could be Reese's Buttercups.
I just realized, that's not the same thing as Reese's Pieces. But yeah, Reese's Buttercups. There you go.
If you want to use a Scientology
that's one of
word,
those
they could
sweet,
be
affectionate names that Reese would use.
You know, I was thinking about a channel name, and I thought about a Scientology word, but I was like, no, because that's not. I'm starting to try to be relatable in the real world, so relatable. But I thought, what about Reese's reactive mind?
Yes,
so you could have Reese's reactive minds.
We have onion peelers, and when we did our membership for our channel, I had like the top level being master peelers, but Janis didn't like the way that sounds, so we had to change it to peeling masters.
There you go.
Instead of master peelers.
And Vanessa and Alicia have the degraded daughters. I'm waiting for someone to go with the degraded beings, just the degraded beings of
the DBs. There you go.
The DBs. Yeah. Okay, so PA Girl 13 says, I cannot wait to hear Reese's stories. So happy you're here.
That is so nice. You little otter whisker. So sweet. People are so nice.
They are. People in the real world are nice. Paula Puffer says, you need to blur out the animals boinking. They'll demonetize the video. Happens to farmers all the time.
Okay.
So Mark, you need to learn how to do that.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I can show you. It's a piece of cake. Okay. Diana, a.k.a. Duchess of Chug. Reese, I think you are very brave and sweet. Can I get a pet name too?
Kitten Fluff. You little kitten Fluff. So nice.
There you go. Okay, let's see.
Guys, I have tons of them. I just want to say I worked in senior living for a long time, and I think that's where it started. Like, I love old people. I love seniors. And so when they would come down in the morning to get coffee or whatever, I was like, get over here, you little apple seed with a walker and your little cane. They were so cute.
So
like,
you're doing, Reese, you're doing God's
pumpkin.
work. And I'm being serious. I'm not joking. You're doing God's work if you're working with seniors like that. That's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I love seniors. They're just
my mother's
going
to be 93 in September, and she's in a group home, and the people that take care of her, oh my God, I kiss the ground at their feet. They're so wonderful.
Yes, you have to love that right, that group of people. Like you could never throw me in as a teacher and work with a bunch of kids. I'd be fired immediately. Yeah. But I love seniors. So thank you. That's nice. But that's where I think it came from, because everybody had a cute little baby name. They're so cute. They're so bald and wrinkled. They're adorable.
So it's like the exact opposite of a roast battle. You're really good at giving people nice little names. Okay, so let's see. What is this next one? Michelle Carpenter, AA run lively discussion in the Discord about what Brisbane sings in your outro. Resulted in some great gifts. Juliana emailed them to you. I did receive them. They were very, very funny. Thank you for that. Oh, look, here we go. Got a name for Reese's followers, the Reese's Pieces. That was 842. So Free Senior Project, did you just join the stream? Because this comment came in 1 minute ago. Anyway, we agree. I mean, Reese's Pieces gets my vote, guys. Hey, what Reese's Rubies, if you want Reese's Rubies, put a 1. If you want Reese's Pieces, put a 2. And if you got some other ideas, throw it up in the chat. Okay.
Sounds great.
Eris D. Why can't David Miscavige, Office of Special Affairs, dismiss any of you as attackers? That's a really good question. That's a really good question.
They tried.
So, what would you guys say it meant in the past to get someone dismissed as an attacker? I mean, legitimately, was it something OSA just thought they were accomplishing and never really did? Or was it something, because it's not the same thing as getting them to go away and to stop doing what they're doing, right?
Well, it depends on the target of who they think you're targeting. Like, are they trying to make us look like attackers to in-house Scientology public? You know what I mean? Like people that are in. I mean, they think they'll paint us as attackers. You know what I mean? Whereas we're just telling the truth. I don't think they really go after us thinking, oh, well, the general public. No, they're more worried about their in-house public, I would think.
That actually never occurred to me. I think you nailed it on the head. They're trying to get us dismissed to Scientologists as just attackers. Guys, that reminded me of something horrible someone emailed me about this week. Aaron Poulin, the Sea Org member who took his own life at the HI building or the AB on Hollywood. You guys know the Anthony building on Hollywood Boulevard? It was the Sea Org birthing building. Is it the
Anthony building? Isn't it
the
on
HI?
Fountain?
Well, I just remember there was no, you're right. The AB's on Fountain. Anyway, Aaron Poulin's a Sea Org member who this was covered in one of the Aftermath episodes. Someone who was in the Sea Org with Aaron at that time emailed me and said, not only did they cover up and not tell anyone that this occurred, they actually told the Sea Org members that he had blown the Sea Org and was attacking Scientology. They got him dismissed in the minds of Sea Org members. They got him dismissed as someone who was like missing. Oh my God, where did he go? Something happened to him. They actually destroyed his reputation amongst his fellow Sea Org members by, instead of telling them that he had died and making up some story for how it happened, they told the Sea Org members that he had blown and was attacking Scientology in the press.
Wow.
I had never heard that before, and I could never have imagined them going that low.
Yeah.
This was a second generation Sea Org member. He was my age or younger. And that the security, Boswell, I think Ryan Boswell was the security chief at the time. This person saw Ryan laughing at how they had tricked Sea Org members into believing something totally false about Aaron Poulin. So anyway, this whole idea of getting someone dismissed just reminded me of that. So I think the reason they can't dismiss us is because we're not telling all the stories that we tell in the anecdotes that we tell. Any Scientologist who hears our stories are going to go, well, that rings true to me. We're not saying crazy shit. We're not making anything up. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
Right.
I mean, in fact, plenty of people will attack us for the first half of this video of being exceedingly unfair and sounding like we're still Scientologists, to be honest.
Right.
But a Scientologist listening to what we're saying would go, wow, these guys are nowhere near what I was told they were like.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why they can't dismiss us. You know?
Yeah. Hey, Janis, just so you know, we get Liberty this week. We just went over 7,000 subscribers.
Oh, good.
No CSW needed. You just get those libs.
You can take the whole weekend off, Mark.
Oh
I think we have a couple of videos that we're doing.
Oh, right. We are.
All right. Lori Plays says, in line for a Reese pet name, and I'm all in for Reese's Pieces. Reese's Pieces.
Oh, well, I already said this one, but it just came to mind for Lori. I don't know why, but she reminds me of a little baby otter whisker. Who doesn't love a baby otter? And their whiskers are so cute.
Baby otters are pretty much the cutest thing out there. That's true.
That's
Although you got the baby polar bears and the baby panda bears are right up there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, the pandas. It's too much.
I have the koala.
Oh, I love koalas and a kangaroo.
You know, our viewers think they want us to call it Mofo, which is me, Mofo, and Koala Calm, which is Janis.
Oh, that's
Maybe
so
just Mofo,
cute, though.
just Mofo
I
and
love
koala.
Animals.
All right, Heather Loving 1D. A little something to get a pet name from Reese. I subscribed, and I cannot wait to get to know you better.
Oh, thanks, Apple Tart. That's so nice. So nice.
That's amazing.
It's really sweet.
Joni Cummings says Reese's channel last checked has 655 Reese's cups. That's what I call your subscribers. Reese, how do you feel being out of a cult?
Good question. I have to say, and I said this last week when I talked to you, Aaron, therapy's helping a lot. But that's why I kind of came up with the name Relatable Reese. I'm relating to people more now than I ever have, because being in the cult, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but maybe this is the Scientologists I was around. They are so much better than everybody else. You go, WOGs are non-Scientologists, and those are the guys that are in the mud, right? They're not in present time. They're not aware. You're not good enough when you're a WOG. So we're kind of treated and told like we're the best of the best. And I never felt that way. I never felt better than anybody else. But it feels so good to be out and not around people who talk like that anymore. And it feels good to just have a conversation with people and not be sitting there judging them going, oh, this is their tone level. This is, and based on this tone level, they're this. And based on this is, and so it feels so good it feels so natural and organic. It's just, this is how I've always felt in my mind, but I had to follow the strict rules of being a Scientologist, and it never felt natural to me. So it feels so good to be even out here talking. I was just telling my therapist that today. It's like, this is just as therapeutic for me, because I'm social anyway, and that's going to be the point of my channel. I want to have dialogue with people. I want to talk to people and talk about their backgrounds and cults if they were in one. It needs to be touched on. And good question, Joni. It feels, every day I feel better. I don't feel sad about it anymore, or depressed about the people I lost. I just feel like there's going to be so much more good than bad at this point in my life. I have to feel that way. I have to hope for that.
That's awesome.
Just one statement here on being judgmental. This is a judgmental statement, but I've never seen a group more judgmental than Scientologists. It just amazes me. You're PPS, you're an SP, it's like they've titled everything.
And your tone level, they just label you in the group. I mean, it's crazy. They eat each other alive.
Oriented.
That's me.
But do you notice that? Like, they talk shit about each other. They talk shit about each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
There are no friends in Scientology, because you are thrown under the bus the second you leave the room.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Amy Scobie did an entire video dedicated to listing out all of the derogatory names Scientology has for people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd love to watch that.
It really is something. And you just casually did. Oh, he's 1-1. Oh, he's integral. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's no case gain.
He's a DB.
Oh, he's a stalled clear. Oh, he's out ethics. He's off the rails. DB, whatever.
What's interesting about that is it's a big no to evaluate for people when they're in the room, I guess, with you. But
no
the second
invalidation,
they leave the
no
room,
evaluation.
That's the first thing people do is evaluate. That's the first thing they do.
That's actually really funny when you look at it that way, because it's almost like Scientology has said what you're not allowed to do is say it to their face. You're supposed to say it behind their back.
Yeah.
Right.
Or in a
The
folder.
second they leave the room, you're allowed to evaluate.
Be a third party.
That's right. Amazing.
Isn't that kind of wild, though, that they do? I mean, they are the first to sum you up. They've got your number,
I mean, especially for a group that's their claim to fame is we have the only workable technology that works 100% of the time on everyone that can fix anything. It's like, geez, you're awfully judgy considering you've pretty much put the responsibility on your own shoulders with that statement there.
Yep. They eat each other alive, honestly. There's no loyalty in this group.
Not at all.
No one even said goodbye to me. Everybody just was gone. So what do you expect?
It's unbelievable.
They're
Lathander Grauklinger says, welcome to the worldwide movement, Reese. I love to see you on a Monday night. My cat picture is a rescue out of a trash can called Kobayashi Maru.
That's a beautiful cat, but I hate hearing those stories.
Yeah.
That's sad, but I'm glad you rescued he or she. I don't know if that's a girl name or a boy name.
Kobayashi rescued Lathander. Kat and Maggie, I still prefer Reese's Buttercups because it fits Missouri speak. Is that a
I
Missouri
agree.
thing?
I have no idea.
Reese's
But,
Buttercups. Actually, it does.
I mean,
it does flow nicely.
People in the Midwest like their candy.
I like my candy. All right, RSD. LRH OSA Tech promises to dismiss attackers utterly. Yeah, it's amazing. They've been trying. For how many years now have they been unable to dismiss Leah, unable to dismiss Mike, unable to? The entire Going Clear documentary. It's like the only one Scientology has succeeded in dismissing is themselves by claiming anyone who's ever worked for them is a destructive criminal pervert. And you're like, doesn't say much for you guys, does it?
Yeah.
All right. Free Xenu Project says, yes, I did join late, but I have to wonder what you were talking about earlier with LRH running all the time and paranoid. That seems to be what David Miscavige is doing. Do you think he's got hiding places to go all set up like LRH had? So this is interesting because LRH wasn't he always kind of going on the fly? Like he didn't seem to have his hiding places prepared out in advance very well.
Right. No, he didn't have hiding places prepared. And then suddenly he's like, oh my God, he's got to get out of there. And he has to scramble to get a place.
Yeah.
Finally, though, when he was gone for good, in 1980, before they bought the Creston Ranch, they also had a couple of other safe houses. They had one in Newberry Springs where some staff stayed, like John Brousseau and all. And then they also had a mobile home in a trailer park in Devore, California, and Sinar Parman was there for a while. So, but it was just all security, just so they could move him if they had to.
It's funny. If I were a Scientologist and I knew the quality of the places LRH was hiding out, my first thought would have been, how is LRH's having this so low for a guy who was worth so much money? He stayed in some real shitholes.
Even when he was in Rifle, Janis, right? It wasn't a beautiful. I mean, it was a nice place, but it wasn't a palace.
Not for a guy worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah,
it was a shithole.
It wasn't a shithole. It was a nice house.
Shithole.
Right.
It was a nice house and it was well cared for, but he wasn't into spending money.
Low havingness.
Yeah. Well,
if I were a Scientologist, I would be offended that the magical LRH was living in, I know you don't like calling them shitholes, but look, the guy was worth hundreds of millions of dollars when he died. He was not
in a Bluebird bus.
In a Bluebird, yeah. And I will say, the Apollo, the Royal Scotsman, that was a rusty old ship full of shithole.
All right, real quick, before I forget, we're not done, but subscribe to Mark and Janis on YouTube at Our Scientology Stories, Peeling the Onion. Subscribe to Reese on YouTube at Relatable Reese. And guys, if you're one of the 1,800 people watching live right now, do us a big favor and hit that like button. It does actually help, believe it or not. Okay, we got a few more to tackle here in just a few more minutes. Deviant Outcast. Reese, giving a lonely little kitty love and warmth for their tiny little paws equals you're a gem and sweet as you can be. Subscribed and eagerly awaiting your debut. Oh,
that is so nice. I'm serious. Thank you. I mean,
here's
it,
one.
guys.
I believe you. I believe you. John Sostovsky says the Reese monkeys. That is a kind of monkey, isn't it? Oh, is there a rhesus monkey? I think a rhesus monkey is RESUS monkey. I think rhesus. No, I'm sorry. I'm saying it wrong. RHESUS. Yeah, that's rhesus, right? Rhesus.
Your monkeys. I don't.
I mean, I do what I can. Okay, Jillian W. I don't have a question, but this is my first ever super chat. Love you guys. Wow.
Welcome, Jillian.
Welcome,
so
Jillian.
Nice.
Okay. Mark Turner. Do any of you have an e-meter? I see some on eBay. I thought I might get one and start a new religion. I thought I still had some lying around, but I tried to look and I can't find him. So I don't think Heather or I have any left over.
Mine are all sold. I sold all my dad's.
Wow, you actually got money for them. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Super Dad, I'd like to believe this cult is honestly being investigated. Do you think Scientology has its claws in federal law enforcement? I do not believe that. I believe they are being investigated. And I believe David Miscavige is one paranoid little cult leader right now for very good reasons. Summer's Son, Buttercups sounds like one of Reese's nicknames. Indeed. That's for sure, right? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that one many times.
Lathanda Grauklinga is back. Maru is a she. She was afraid of hands at first, but now she is very cuddly. The name comes from Star Trek. It's a no-win scenario, but in the end, we won by cheating with toys and treats.
Interesting. I love that story. I love that they can be rehabilitated. Like that kid was terrified of us, but now, as you could see throughout this video, she's quite unafraid. She makes herself at home.
My daughters are infatuated with fostering kittens and then adopting them. And somehow we wound up with a cat that was not a kitten. It was a full grown big ass cat that already had a troubled past and was on psych drugs. No. This cat was on antipsychotic medication. I'm not kidding. And I don't know. No, but now it's I don't know how anyone could have ever thought there was anything wrong with this cat. It is the calmest, sweetest cat. It goes indoors and outdoors, and it meow, let me in, meow, let me out, cuddles with everyone. But yeah.
Did he do his Purif? Did you put him on the Purif?
Objectives is what cracked his case.
Was it really?
It was hard with a cat. You had to put on gloves and everything, but
yeah.
Eventually he came around. Okay, and we have a super sticker from Veronica. Guys, this has been an incredible amount of fun. This has been great. Did that feel like 2 hours, Reese?
Other than the fact that I have a hamster bladder right now and I'm about to explode. No.
All right.
I had a blast. I could go for more time. I really had a good time. Thank you for having me.
Next time, feel free to take a break. It's okay.
Hey,
everyone.
We'll just watch the cats.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Bye, everyone.
They were just saying bye.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end. And we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
If you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.